Hello and welcome to this video series on deploying and configuring vRealize operations for Horizon and published applications. You will be taken through a series of tasks in the form of labs, from deploying vRealize operations to configuring the adapters to connect to a Horizon 7 environment and a Citrix XenApp and XenDesktop 7.6 environment to be able to monitor, gather, and send back information to be viewed in the form of dashboards within the vRealize Operations Manager. This first slide shows the infrastructure used to create these videos. It also has the preconditions to achieve the tasks listed. In this slide, we encourage you to take time in going through the vROPS for Horizon Technical Overview YouTube video, which will give you an overview of the product, its integration into Horizon, and the metrics captured and translated into dashboards for easy understanding and speedy action to any issue detected. The technical overview video will help you get a better understanding and a grasp to be able to take you through this video lab series. In this slide, we take a look at the deployment components of the vRealize operations adapters, broker, and desktop agents that connect into the vCenter, Horizon View, and the Citrix XenDesktop and XenApp environment. The information here has been taken from the installation guides from both the vRealize operations for Horizon as well as the published applications. In this slide, we take a look at the lab environment used to create this video series. In this slide, I've created a table of content that lists out all the labs in this video series. Let's now move from PowerPoint into our lab session and take a look at Lab 1, deploying of the vRealize operations OVA onto a vSphere environment. Since we're going to deploy vROPS appliance with a static IP address, the first step is to go ahead and create a DNS record. The FQDN we define here will be visible at the end of the installation of the vROPS appliance. Now we can deploy the vROPS appliance using the Deploy OVF wizard. It should be noted that the settings configured in the wizard are only suited for a demo or a proof of concept environment. This KB article will help you in sizing your vROPS requirement. Now select the host or cluster and select a data store to thin provision the virtual machine, and select a routable network to reach the target endpoints to be monitored. Select the time zone and network properties, and then go ahead and power on the virtual machine. In the interest of time, I've gone ahead and sped up the video till we complete the installation of the vROPS appliance. Once deployed, we will be presented with two URLs to access the vROPS web console. Lab 2 takes us through the initial setup wizard. Now that we have deployed the vROPS appliance, let's log in and provide the information required to complete the installation. As it is the first instance of vROPS in the environment, click on New Installation and click on Next. Go ahead and create an admin password and then click on Next. Go ahead and select the default certificate. Now provide a name for the master node, as this is the first node in the cluster, followed by an NTP server address for time synchronization, and then go ahead and complete the initial setup wizard. As part of the cluster initialization process, go ahead and click on Start vROPS Manager and confirm the first application startup. Once the status changes to online, we will be taken to the login page, and that will complete our lab. This optional lab will configure a second vROPS appliance as a remote collector node that can be placed at remote sites. Once the second appliance has been deployed, go to the initial setup page and select Expand an existing installation. Select the node settings page, provide the node name and type, join the node with the master by accepting the master node certificate. Provide the admin account password and complete the installation wizard. You will now notice the new node being added as a remote collector to the cluster and will complete a similar initialization process to reach the final login page and complete the installation. Once the status on the new node changes to online, we can go into the master node and define the new remote collector node to be part of a new collector group. We now log in to the master node and we go into the administration tab. We need to go down and select the collector groups to go ahead and create a new collector group. Go ahead and click on the plus symbol. This will open up to a screen that will ask us to put in a name for the new collector group and select from the list of nodes that are currently not associated with any other collector group. Once we go ahead and select the node, we can go ahead and click on Save. And then we can go back to the collector groups and we find our new group listed out here. And that ends the steps involved in this optional lab. Lab 3, Configuring vROPS for vCenter. In this lab, we start by completing a 5-step registration process in which licensing information is provided into vROPS that will allow the vCenter solution to be added. Adding the right license key will enable and/or activate built-in solutions or imported solutions that are part of solution packs that are available from within VMware as well as third-party vendors. Once the registration is completed, we move on to the Solutions tab and we can see that the vCenter solution has been added. In order to manage the vCenter solution, we need to go ahead and create connector instances which will provide credentials to connect the vCenter adapter in vROPS into vCenter. This will in return connect to vCenter and start collecting data. You also have the choice of selecting the collector and the collection settings. For the purposes of this environment, we're going to go ahead and select the defaults and go ahead and click on Next and complete the process by clicking on Finish. Once back into the solutioning page, we go ahead and do the same set of configuration for the vCenter Python Actions adapter, which also collects data by providing actions for the vCenter objects. We can validate the state and the status of the connectivity between the adapters and vCenter, which can also be seen in the form of health, risk, and efficiency graphs in the home screen, bringing to an end the steps required in this lab. Lab 4, Adding Horizon and Published Application Solutions. This is done by downloading the required software from the VMware site and in vROPS under the Solution pane, going ahead and adding the solution by uploading the pack files as shown here. And once the upload is complete, they will be listed under the Solutions tab. We get to see the solution, which is now pending configuration. And now let's go ahead and add the vRealize operations for published application solution by uploading the pack file. And now we see both the solutions listed but awaiting configuration. This involves creating an instance with a pairing key which will be used in the next lab to pair the broker agent. For the published applications, the broker agent is installed on a Citrix delivery controller and paired back to the vROPS collector or the collector group. For Horizon, the broker agent is installed on the Horizon connection server and paired back to the vROPS collector or the collector group. Now that we've completed the configuration of the instances, we can validate the collection state and status to see if we are collecting and receiving data. And that'll bring us to the end of this lab. Optional Lab 2, configuring an instance with a remote collector node. In the first optional lab, we went ahead and added a second vROPS appliance and configured it to be a remote collector. We can go into a solution as seen here and add or make changes to the default collector and choose a remote collector instead. This is done if we need to separate the traffic and the load. Let's now go back to our lab 4 and complete the process of adding a solution by adding specific licensing to the solution itself. Highlighting a solution and clicking on the configure will take you to the licensing section. From the available solutions, go ahead and click on add, select the solution and provide the license key, then validate and then save the licensing information. We will now go ahead and update the same licensing information for our second solution that we've uploaded. Once we've completed the process of updating the licensing keys for the solutions imported into the vRealize operations, we can now focus on updating the licensing groups. This is done in a vROPS environment with mixed licensing editions. I've already gone ahead and updated the licensing groups for each of the solutions with the membership criteria defined in the installation guide. I've made the required changes to the membership criteria for each of the product licensing group and the imported solution groups. You can go ahead and pause the video and take a closer look at the membership criteria that has been defined for each of the licensing groups. Once done, we will complete the required steps for this lab. Lab 5, Firewall Configuration and Installing of the Broker and Desktop Agents. The first step is to use the install guide to identify and open the required firewall ports within the collector server appliance to accept connections from the vROPS for Horizon and published application broker and desktop agents. The following process will show you how to log in to the appliance, edit and extend the firewall ports, and then go ahead and restart the firewall service. Since we are opening up specific firewall ports within the network, it would be a good idea to also ensure that these ports are also open to the target Windows environment by using group policies to control the firewall on those Windows operating systems. Now that we've updated the firewall port and restarted the firewall service, we can go ahead and install the broker agents. Let's now launch the Horizon connection server and go ahead and start the installation for the broker agent. The installation is pretty straightforward, and once done, it will go ahead and open up the broker agent config utility for Horizon. The first step is to configure the adapter pairing with the collector server details and the pairing key provided when we created the adapter instance in the previous lab. Once the pairing is successful, we go ahead and update the information for our Horizon View connection server and go ahead and test the connection. We will now have to provide the credentials for the Horizon event database and then test the connection. For the purposes of this demo, we'll leave the intervals, the timeouts, and the logging level to its defaults. Then we go ahead and start the service. Once done, we can go ahead and close out the utility. Now let's go ahead and close out from the Horizon connection server and go back to the vROPS console. We can see over here that the collection state and status has already started collecting and receiving data. For the published applications, the broker agent is installed on the Citrix desktop delivery controller. So we go ahead and log in and start the installation of the broker agent. The installation is similar to that of the previous installation in the Horizon connection server. Goes ahead, opens up the utility, and asks you for the vROPS collector server details along with the pairing key that was previously configured. Once this is tested and done, we will be presented with a URL of the adapter as well as a certificate string. We need to copy this information for later that will be applied into a group policy and pushed out into the environment. We now provide the credentials for the Citrix delivery controller and test the connection. We will once again leave the intervals, timeout period, and the logging information to its defaults and start the service, and go ahead and close out the utility. In a Citrix environment, we will also need to go ahead and install the desktop agent. The desktop agent gets installed on the delivery controller as well as on the storefront server, the licensing server, the session host server, as well as the operating systems in the VDI environment. We can now go back and quickly take a look at the collection state and status and see that we are receiving and collecting data. Our next step is to find the vROPS group policy template ADMX file and copy it into the policy definitions folder within the sysvol. Once this is done, we can go ahead and create a group policy to help the agents connect back into the vROPS collector server appliance. Now that we have the template in the right place, let's log into the domain controller and open up the group policy management console. Here we can go ahead and create a new group policy for the vROPS for the published applications. Go ahead and give it a name and then right click on the new group policy and choose the edit option. We go down through the computer configuration into the administrative templates and open the vROPS template. Once there, we open up the single setting that we find for vROPS, enable the setting, and then copy the URL and the certificate chain that was provided earlier during the pairing process. We commit to the group policy by clicking on OK and then close out the policy manager. Since it's a computer policy, we need to ensure that the systems are rebooted, and this is the last step in this lab. Lab 6, Testing and Viewing the Results in vROPS. Now that we have our vROPS environment set up, our first steps is to launch applications and desktop sessions from both the VMware's Horizon and the Citrix XenApp and XenDesktop environments. Once that's done, we can go ahead into the vROPS dashboard to view the findings. I'm currently launching application and desktop sessions from the Citrix storefront, and then we'll go into the Horizon View client and go ahead and launch application as well as desktop sessions from there. And now let's connect into the Horizon environment and access a few applications and hosted desktops. The current Horizon environment is publishing applications and desktop environments from a RDSH platform, which is configured and connected into the Horizon broker. We will go ahead and launch individual applications from the published application pool, as well as launch a hosted session desktop from the RDS pool. Now that we have launched applications and desktop sessions from both VMware and Citrix VDI environments, let's take a look at what we have to view within the vROPS console. The first thing we notice under the cluster management, we can take a look at the adapter instances, the current state of the data flow, and the number of objects along with the metrics being collected. Moving on to the dashboard, we can take a look at the various dashboards that are now integrated as part of the two new solutions that have been imported into the vROPS console. The dashboards show metrics captured in the form of status counters. In this dashboard, we get to see the collection status from the agents back to the vROPS environment. To another dashboard that shows us metrics from launched applications and desktop sessions from within the Citrix environment. We can also see a dashboard that shows us session login breakdown of users within the environment launching applications. We can also see that the status is currently green, but the user is disconnected from a session. And this tab shows us the user's environmental status. Moving on to the Horizon tabs, we get to see similar dashboards displaying metrics on collection status, user sessions, as well as the impact of launching the applications and the desktop sessions on the Horizon infrastructure. As we only have a RDS environment within Horizon, we get to see metrics on the Horizon RDS dashboards. The metrics that are getting collected are extremely granular to a user, to his individual application or desktop session. We get to see the status of an individual application all the way up to the load on the overall environment. We can also view the connection protocol sessions that match to the users connecting into the environment. And the next tab that will show us information from the desktop agent installed on the individual RDS host server. We can also view information from the broker adapter that is installed on the Horizon connection server. And a similar end user experience dashboard for the Horizon environment, which shows the health of the environment that the user has logged into. The recommendations dashboard shows translated metrics into immediate health, potential risk, and recommendations to improve future efficiency of the environment. The Diagnostics tab shows individual objects, its relationship within the environment, and metrics that help in diagnosing problems. To get into more detail, I recommend you watch the deep dive video session from the link provided. And finally, the Self-Health tab provides a cluster-level view of the environment. We hope this video series has been informative. For those of you who are going to download the vROPS for Horizon or published applications, do take a look at the release notes for the latest version for both the VDI monitoring solutions. Do take time to browse through the reference links provided for a deeper understanding of the two solutions. Thank you for watching.